Hi there, fifth graders. I'm back with a short video on your fifth grade narrative checklist, your personal narrative checklist. Before we left for our remote learning, you took your writing folder home. And this writing folder, this checklist is found in your writing folder. And some of these icons we already had highlighted. Well, since then, we've gone through all of these icons. This is how Mrs. Kuman and I are going to be grading your personal narrative. So today you need to find your personal narrative checklist in your folder and make sure that you've done all of these things in your personal narrative, because this is how we will be grading you. My writing should include the following. I'm going to read through these, and then Mrs. Kuman and I will be saying, oop, nope, I don't see that they have this in their writing, or they started to, but it's not perfect yet. Not that it'll be perfect, but it's showing like really good strategies, or yes, they nailed it. These will be worth points, and then we will give an overall percentage and a letter grade on your personal narrative. So you want to make sure that your narrative has all of these things in it. So number one, that you have paragraphs to separate different parts. I'm going to go ahead and highlight so you can see what I'm reading. And then, so you need to make sure that you have paragraphs to separate different parts of the times of your story to show when a new character is speaking, like dialogue, and some parts should be longer and more developed than others. I should make sure that there's transitions where there's a new where and a new when. So I should see different paragraphs. If you wrote all in one paragraph, not okay. Okay. Your next, I'm gonna use a different color. icon is you should have a lead in which I showed what was happening and where, but also gave some clues that introduced a problem for my main character. So remember, when you think back to our lead, you should have a hook, and you should state the who, what, where, and when. So you give a little bit of an idea of what's happening in your story. We wrote these at the very beginning. Those should be pretty good. And then our next icon that we will grade you on is transitional words that show passage of time as such as meanwhile, at the same time, or early that morning, or 3 hours later, or suddenly, immediately, just then, using some of those peppy transitional words and phrases to show that time has passed or there's a new setting. The next section that you need to look over to make sure your piece really has as well, go ahead and use lighter purple, an ending that is connected to the main part of the story. The character learned something at the end, felt something at the end, or accomplished something. So in my personal narrative, I ended where I learned a lesson, friends, those of you in blue team, because I gave into peer pressure and I puckered up and tried to kiss that turtle and it latched onto me. So at the end, I had to show that I learned a lesson to my readers. If you accomplish something in your story, you need to show that at the end. If you felt something at the end, you need to show that feeling. Remember, when we end a piece, we can end with our feelings, giving an update, that lesson learned, or what we accomplished. So we already worked on conclusions, so that should be there. The next thing that we should see in your piece is that you developed and showed instead of told about the characters, the setting, and that you have description. You have your rising actions, your climactic moment, and your falling actions. That you have dialogue in your piece, and when you're showing maybe your thinking in your narrative. Make sure you check for all of those things today. Make sure you have the heart of the story, meaning like your lesson learned, something heartfelt happened or accomplished. All of yours is different. This we worked on, figurative language. Make sure that you have figurative language in your piece, hyperboles where you exaggerate, metaphors or similes where you compare two things. But with simile, remember, you have used the word like or as. An alliteration, like Sally sold seashells by the seashores, having a repetitive S. If you use personification, giving a real life thing like an object like the fridge, and you said the fridge was talking to me. Well, the fridge can't talk, but you gave it a real life characteristic. Think back to where you can add more figurative language in your piece. Make sure that you also have a variety of sentences. Okay, sentences should be short, long. And then we get into the editing, all the editing. This is all editing. This stuff would all take place in your revising and in your drafting. In your last piece, this is all considered, I'm going to highlight it the same color. This is all considered editing in your piece. You need to make sure that you go back and check, and this happened yesterday, that you have the correct spelling. Make sure that you have good commas and quotation marks for your dialogue and punctuation. Make sure you have capitalization at the start of every sentence and proper nouns are capitalized, like names of places and people, your title of your narrative. And then make sure you check your punctuation. And this is all of this editing piece. You should have done this yesterday. So this is how Mrs. Kumin and I are going to grade you on your narratives. So you need to make sure that you have everything in this checklist. If you can't find this in your writing folder or you misplaced it, I have linked a copy of it for you on our remote plan. You can go ahead and click on it and go back and reread your piece and make sure it looks like it should. You might even want to reread it with someone at home, a bigger brother or sister, or a mom or a dad, and have them look through and see if there's things that they can find, because this is going to be a grade on your report card. Remember, you can also hop onto Zoom if you have questions about your piece. So I know that you just watched the cover page piece, and now here's your second video watching the checklist. So then tomorrow you're ready for the next part of publishing. All right, good luck today. I know you can do it, and make sure your piece represents all of the great things that are on this personal narrative writing checklist. See you later.